Hey everyone, this is episode 9 and I'm back. Carly did not manage to get rid of me entirely for episode 8, but we thought with having the One Nation candidate for the Libertarians on, we'd also get, for INDI on, we'd also get Tim Quilty, which is the INDI candidate for the Libertarian Party. And as a quick introduction for me personally, as I've said to you guys before, obviously Libertarian's a philosophy I follow. I have ran as Tim's number 2 for the Senate in a state election, so there is some connection there. So yeah, look guys, that's my bias. I like Libertarians. I love the One Nation guys as well, but Libertarians kind of my home. Not currently a member, but very much want you guys to get to know Tim Quilty, because he's a quiet guy. He's pretty humble in my opinion, and he can be a little bit hard to get to know unless you get to hear him on a podcast or something like that, or want to do some deep dives. But Tim has been a great fighter, and in Parliament, an absolute bulldog. Labor hate him.
So I've heard that.
So, right.
The Libs didn't like you much either.
Yeah, that's right. So, and you all know Carly. You've probably all got a basic idea who I am by now. So, Tim, did you want to just talk about yourself real quick, who you are, where you come from, why you're running?
Sure. All right. So, Tim Quilty. I'm a accountant from Wodonga. Originally, I come off a property up at Adelong in southern New South Wales, but I've been in Wodonga about 13, 14 years now. I was a Wodonga councillor for a few years, and then I was elected to the Victorian State Parliament for 4 years between 2018 and 2022, which was an interesting time to be in Parliament. We had a fun year at the start. We're making fun of the government, and then COVID came along, and bushfires, and everything got a lot more serious. What else? I've been a member of the Libertarian Party since back in 2003, and this will be my 5th time running for federal parliament, and plus 2 state election runs in there and some council runs. So not my first rodeo. But why am I running? I want a better Australia for my children. We're sliding out of control here. I think it's obvious to most of us that something's gone badly wrong. And if we keep voting for the same parties who have been making it wrong, things will keep getting wrong. They'll go worse. I want to be able, in 20 years' time, when everything's collapsing, I don't want my children to say, "Why didn't you do something about it?" I'm doing something. I'm doing what I can about it. And other people should step up as well.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah.
So that's the call out, guys. You don't have to all run, but you can support those that are going to keep pushing that message. Now, Tim, obviously, so our podcast is mainly about the Great Forest National Park and outdoor recreation. We've got hunters, all sorts of people on here. But this isn't your first time sort of dealing with this. Carly and I are a little bit new to this fight, but you've been here before. Did you want to tell us a little bit about what that was in Parliament?
So especially in our first year in Parliament, I did a lot of work around opposing the Wombat State Forest being turned into a national park and the Great Forest National Park. I'm sure we had a debate about it there at some point, as well as issues with the Murray River and the water. That was one of the big issue in 2019. When COVID came along, it sort of rolled over the top of everything, and we didn't pay as much attention to these issues because we were worried about the lockdowns and loss of human rights. And it kind of derailed our campaigns a little bit that way, but I think that did it for everyone. It just changed the political agenda there. But certainly, we've been campaigning against locking up bush. It's a complete, we all know it's a complete disaster. The bushfire, so we should be grazing it, we should be using it, we should be logging it, we should be keeping it open, control burning it, all those things that should happen and are not going to happen. And when the government take control of the areas, they just stop spending money on it. We've seen it happen time and time again. One interesting thing, before I forget about it, for the 2022 election campaign, we did some policies, had some policies costed by the state parliamentary budget office about what it would cost to turn national parks back into state forests. And they said, oh, this is going to be really expensive. And we're going, what? Why? And they're saying, well, all state forests have to be maintained. All this money gets spent on maintaining them. Once it's a national park, they can just lock the gates and leave it. It's much, much cheaper for the government. And I think that's pretty telling, actually.
Wow.
So, and it's good for the government to look to save money, but you've got to look at what the what else might be the problem next. And bushfires are a bit of an issue for us that live in the country. We like our forests to be maintained, please.
We all know it. Look, in the 2020 2020 bushfires, I was up at my family farm for a month fighting fires up there. They don't have the national parks on their boundary. They've got state forestry, New South Wales state forestry on their boundary, and all that burnt. There was $30 billion worth of pine trees went up in smoke. But again, there was a lack of they'd stopped maintaining the fire tracks and everything in there. The government was trying to privatise it, and they had just about had the state forest up for sale. In a month or two, it would have been sold for $30 billion, and then the fire got into it and wiped out hundreds of thousands of hectares of pine trees were burned. And I mean, yeah, it was we all know that was a bad bushfire year, but also that they hadn't done the maintenance, they hadn't done the fire prep up there. Just the same thing as the government, they're cutting costs and hoping the fires don't come, but they do.
Yeah. They always do.
So I don't know if you want to, I don't know if you have any stories or anything necessary to talk about, but I remember watching a lot of your old videos, mainly before COVID. I think there's even a couple after sort of the COVID stuff or drew in, where you defended law-abiding firearm owners quite a lot. Is that something you're particularly passionate about, or you just, click around with a 22 occasionally? What's your personal thoughts on that?
So I grew up on, like I said before, I grew up on a farm. I grew up around firearms. My father gave me an old single-shot 22 on my 8th birthday, and we used to go out hunting rabbits in the mornings before school. That's the old historic story that no one has anymore. He gave it was a 22 that his father gave him when he was 8, and he gave it to me. But obviously, I can't give it to my sons now because they've locked all that way of life off from us. So I grew up around firearms. I'm not a massive shooter. I don't go do a lot of hunting. We go up to the farm and we do some vermin control at Easter and long weekend, the King's birthday long weekend and stuff. I like to get the boys up there and take them out shooting. But certainly I'm not a mad keen deer hunter or anything like that. But I am passionate about firearms and the right to possess firearms, and it should be a basic right for people to have the means of self-defense. And it was for many years up until 96 and John Howard. That is when I was a member of the Liberal Party up until 96 when the National Firearm Agreement came in. That's when I quit the Liberal Party and walked away, set up. No more politics for me. That didn't last very long. Then I ran into the Libertarian Party and found this is my real home. So I came back. But certainly, I'm passionate about firearms. I'm a Second Amendment kind of guy. I think we should have a right to bear arms. That's obviously not a popular view in the cities, but I think that's probably more popular in regional areas. People who are familiar with firearms and comfortable with them. We've talked about, as a Libertarian Party, having a Bill of Rights, and something we wanted to do at the state level, but also at a federal level. I'm not convinced we'll be able to get a Second Amendment as such through in Australian voting, but what we talked about is a right to self-defense, and just leave it at that, which means using whatever means is necessary to defend yourself. I think self-defense is a basic human right, and I think that should be part of any Bill of Rights that we set up. So that certainly is a passion for me. Defending firearm owners, and if I get into Parliament again, I will certainly pursue that issue.
Yeah, well, I'm a bit of a Second Amendment. I like the idea of that as well. And it just seems to me that, all these people talk about standing up with, women that are victims of crime and all that sort of stuff. And the libertarian answer is, well, if they were allowed to have a gun and be trained with it, they mightn't even be victims in the first place. So here's the libertarians defending people's rights to defend their property, themselves, and their families. My argument is that actually the right, for me, I don't have a right to defend my family. I have a duty as a father to defend my family, which is a bit beyond a right. So, yeah, I'm very passionate about the Second Amendment ideas.
And we're not even allowed to have non-lethal things like pepper spray. That's just nonsense.
Yeah.
I as a woman who's being, targeted by people, I've gone down to the old fire extinguisher at the front door. You spray them in the face and then whack them over the head with it when it's empty.
Yep.
Can get away with that one for you ladies listening. Get yourself a fire extinguisher.
Just keep it by the door for other reasons.
Yeah. Yes, reasons in case there's a fire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, or a guy who's feeling a little bit too hot, maybe you could let his fire. All right. So I don't know what would be your favourite. Because you were in the Victorian Parliament, what would be your favourite moment there? Did you particularly upset someone or get something through that you sort of look back on and go, I'd like to do more of that?
Looking back, we did a lot. We talked. I think I spoke more than any other member of the chamber. I raised more questions with the government. Every opportunity we had to speak, we brought them up issues from constituents, issues from the region. Because I was a member for Northern Victoria, which was all of everything from the mountains to the South Australian border, all the way along the Murray River, and then down to the outskirts of Melbourne. It's 104,000 square kilometres, not miles. It's a really big area. But I don't know. In the first year in government, we had a lot of fun. We mocked the government mercilessly for all their stupid ideas, all the dumb policies they came up with, like the getting rid of plastic bags and single-use straws. We were the only people. David and I were the only people arguing against it. It doesn't make environmental sense. It actually is more damaging to the environment. What they did, just the fact that people, instead of having a plastic bag from the supermarket that you can use again as for your rubbish, everyone got these reusable bags that they don't keep very long, and the actual environmental impacts are 20 or 30 times as damaging with these reusable bags. Every single thing about the policy was nonsense, and even the government minister responsible, after the debate was over, came to us privately and said, "Yeah, I agree with you. It's right. Everything you said was right, but this is politics."
It's virtue signalling. That's not exactly politics. It's virtue signalling.
Well, it's the government signalling how good they are on the environment. Exactly the same thing as these national parks. They don't care about the environment. They want to appear to care to the voters in Melbourne, who also don't care about what's going on in the bush. They all want to feel good while they sit in their cafes in Melbourne. I'm just trying to think of some funny stories. It's not really funny. When I was when they were kicking us out of the parliament for not revealing our vaccine status, I got up there and had a big shot at the government and also at the coalition for being cringing cowards and voting with the government on it. But at that point, they had the Labor front bench, back bench, were all on their feet, yelling and screaming at me. I'm going to give my speech, and I normally gave very short speeches, but this one I went for 10 minutes, my full 10 minutes, and I had all the Labor MPs up yelling at me and screaming at me abuse. But that kind of thing just fires me up. So I'm normally quiet, but the more pushback I get, the harder I dig in. So anyway, you should, if you get bored, you should look at that speech one day. It's around somewhere. Anyway, but no, the Parliament it was interesting. The first year was a lot of fun, and then we all got very serious about human rights, and we got tired as well. But it was very interesting, and I would like to go back to carry on the fight. maybe with a different government next time.
Yeah, well, a couple of things on there. So getting kicked out of the parliament. So that was you, David Limbrick. So for those who aren't following quite who's who, David Limbrick is in the same party as Tim Quilty. And it was Catherine Cummings, and she's an independent. Is that right?
Yep.
And everyone else just did as they were told.
I think it was a lower house MP who didn't reveal his status as well. But, and look, I was vaccinated. I got my vaccine, but I just did, and I was pro their vaccine campaign all the way up to the moment they made it mandatory for people, and then and that was a step too far. Encourage people, put it out there, but once you're forcing people to have experimental medical treatments, that's just nonsense. People losing their jobs, people losing their houses. The stories we heard, I had one woman came into my office, young woman, had her first vaccine shot and had anaphylactic shock from it, had died and been resuscitated, was going to lose her job because she hadn't had a second vaccine. And she, no one would give her an exemption, but also no one would give her a second vaccine. The doctors didn't want to kill her and be responsible for killing her, but none of them would sign an exemption for her either. So,
wow.
Because all doctors were going to lose their licenses if they sign exemptions. So no one would sign an exemption, but no one would vaccinate her. And that was probably the saddest of all the sad stories. But just hundreds of those stories happened, and the closing of the borders and all this absolute nonsense. This insanity that gripped the whole country for a period of 18 months or 2 years then, and hasn't completely gone away yet. Really soured my taste of Australia, and not that I ever trusted the government before, but I may have been a little bit naively optimistic that they would do good things sometimes. But after all that experience, I'm completely off government altogether.
I think that happened to a lot of us. I think, the repercussions against and Vic Pol. That's a big thing as well. The government and the police. A lot of people lost a lot of respect and nasty time.
I guess one thing as a libertarian, we've never trusted the government. That's I don't need to subscribe to a massive conspiracy about what's happening. I just know where there's government, it's going to be political and acting in the interests of the government, not the voters. And they're going to constantly take more power because that's what government does. They take more money, achieve more power, employ more of their people, and it's a cycle that just builds on and on. So as a libertarian, I didn't trust the government beforehand. Whatever the government does is going to be wrong. So that's why the government should do as little as possible.
All right. 2 questions. One's important and one's cool. So let's go real lighthearted. I just want to check your memory real quick on something. McDonald's started doing the cardboard straws first, and I remember you saying the straws were better somewhere. Where were they better?
Hungry Jack's.
Straws are better at Hungry Jack's.
Those paper straws are the worst thing in the world. The soggy cardboard in your mouth. It's I refuse to use them.
So we bought reusable straws we carry in the car now, just because.
But have you seen what gets stuck in those things? They freak me out too. They give you the little cleaner things to get them, and there's still disgusting stuff in there. It's not cool. I don't like it. Just give me back my plastic straws. God damn.
If you go to your country markets, quite often you can find someone selling. I buy bags and bags of plastic straws. They're in the car. I don't know if I'm legally allowed to carry them. I'll probably go to prison for something.
You would too.
Police will be stopping you on the highway and searching your car with a bag of straws.
Plastic straws.
Now, on a more important thing, although I think having plastic straws is important, but on a deeper level, I suppose. So you mentioned libertarians never trust government. Conservatives, particularly these days, even in Australia, tend to not be very trusting of government either. But then they still, what what would you say is sort of the identifying difference between a libertarian and a conservative?
I'm not sure that we have any conservatives left in Australia. The philosophy of conservatism is the idea that everything that's in place is in place for a reason, and you shouldn't change it without thinking really, really hard about why. You don't just say, "Oh, I don't like this, I want to change this." Someone put things in place in the past for a purpose, and if you don't understand what that purpose was, it's very, very dangerous to mess with it. So conservatives are all about saying change as little as possible, as slowly as possible, and only be very sure about what you're doing. The trouble with our so-called conservative parties in Australia is they're all busy conserving all the things that the socialists did 10 years ago. So they're not protecting what Australia had 100 years ago or 80 years ago or 50 years ago. They're busy protecting all the policies that the Labor Party brought in last time they were in government and the time before they were in government. And the Labor Party, of course, are trying to implement more radical policies, and the Conservatives are going, no, let's just stick with all the NDIS and all the welfare stuff that you put in place last time you're in government. So they never wind anything back. The Labor get in and they make radical changes, and then the Conservatives get in and they do nothing. They get the budget back in shape, maybe, or not last time. And otherwise, they make no changes. They just keep everything the way it was. And that's why the country keeps slipping steadily leftward to socialism.
Yeah. So, and that you're mainly talking about the Liberal Party there. I think One Nation probably leans a little bit sort of in a libertarian camp in some aspects, and then conservative policy in others. Would that be your estimate?
Oh, certainly. Insofar as they've got coherent policies, One Nation, they have some libertarian policies and some conservative policies. If they ever get their act together, they could become a replacement party, conservative party in the country. But they have to break all their Pauline Hanson as the one true leader, and anyone who else in the party does anything good gets kicked out of the party. And that's a big problem for them, I think. And you see it time and time again. MPs get elected into One Nation, and then they leave 6 months or 12 months later because they clashed with Pauline, and everything has to be done Pauline's way. But certainly,
I can relate. I could relate with that. Like that would be me as a party leader. Like, I'm just saying it would be.
Yeah, I don't think Tim's having a go at Pauline. He's just talking about
yeah.
Because I mean, you can understand. Like, she went to prison. She had bad advice and stuff in the past. So you can understand why she's a bit sort of gripping onto things. But
yeah.
There's pros and cons with whatever you do.
Yeah, and it is sad that everyone can't work together and be a voice for us. But there is reasons.
There are a lot of egos in politics as well. The people who are attracted to politics have big egos, and they don't want anyone else telling them what to do. And so you see a lot of argument. Why can't everyone work together? It's because they clash. There's some of our ideology behind them, why they clash, and some of them just have big personalities who haven't got room for anyone else in the tent.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I mean, you don't just see it in politics. You see it in any organisation. Personality clashes come to override the missions of the organisation. It's just a thing about people.
But then, do you believe that people would actually get to that position within politics if they didn't have that ego and that? You don't think so?
Generally, often not, especially in the big parties. You've got to put your 20 years of time in and work your way up the ladder and stab people in the back and climb over their bodies to get to the top. And by the time you've done all that, they've weeded out anyone with the morality to not do bad things.
Interesting.
Plastic, identical people pretending to be identical, not causing issues. Yes, it mills out a lot of the good people in the process.
Yeah. Did you have a question or anything yet, Carly, or can I move on to my favourite subject?
You can move on to your favourite subject. I'm enjoying this.
Might be one of Tim's favourites as well. Tim, what is REXIT?
All right. In my maiden speech in Parliament, I said, if the city doesn't listen to the country, the country is going to break away and make our own state. And I called it REXIT to riff on Brexit, which had happened a couple of years before. The idea of REXIT is that we actually break away, take the regional areas of Victoria and New South Wales, break away from the cities and make a new state out of what's there. Some people might think that sounds crazy, but here's the situation we're in now. In Victoria, 75% of the population now live in Greater Melbourne. So of the whole big state, 75% of the people are packed into tiny little Melbourne. It's become so many resources, so many people have moved to there. It's become like a giant black hole, economically, politically, socially. Everything runs into Melbourne. It sucks the life out of the regional areas. It takes the jobs, it takes the money, it takes the people, and it's a self-perpetuating cycle. The more that moves in there, the bigger it gets, and the less important the rest of the region, the state becomes, and rinse and repeat. If you wind the clock back 100 years, it was only about 25 or 30% of the population living in Melbourne, and it's just people want to live in cities, sure, but also it's a self-perpetuating thing that because the voters are there, the government takes the money and spends it there, and then it's more attractive to live there because the government's spending the money there, so more voters move there, and it goes around and around. One of my things I talked about was regional railways and all the railway lines shut down or mismanaged in regional Victoria. The government could fix all the regional railways for a couple of $2 billion, but instead they spend $200 billion on building railway lines in Melbourne. And sure, they need lines to move people in Melbourne, but for a fraction of what they're spending there and wasting there, they could have fixed the whole of Victorian's regional rail. And it's important to get with properly functioning rail and regular freight trains. We'd move a whole lot of trucks off the roads. There'd be people traveling by train. As a libertarian, I probably shouldn't talk about public transport and trains, but it's just, to me, it's symbolic of how the regional areas have been ripped dry to spend money in Melbourne. They build the hospitals in Melbourne. And yes, it is more expensive to build little hospitals in the regions, but if we don't have hospitals, we won't have people living in the regions. We can't have the doctors. We can't have all the infrastructure that goes behind it. So you need a government that is prepared to invest in the regions, not to take the money out of the regions. Anyway, so the idea of REXIT is that we have a referendum and we separate regional Victoria from Melbourne, regional New South Wales from Sydney. Potentially we join those two areas or parts of those two areas together to make a new state. I like to call it Murray because the Murray River will run down the middle of it. And where the capital would be, I'd like to say Echuca, Moama, but because that's about the centre and it's got a railway line, but it could be anywhere. We would build a decentralised state. So instead of having one big capital city in the middle, we would spread out all the government services around the state. So there is no central black hole. But the main advantage of it is that the decisions affecting the region will be made by the people living in the region. We wouldn't have people in Melbourne locking up our parks, shutting down our timber industries, banning mining, all the things that are happening, screwing up the irrigation water, all the things that happen to please greenies in the city that impact on us. We wouldn't have the solar panels and the wind farms and the spider web of power lines being pushed across the countryside unless we wanted to. But we're having that push on us by people in the city who get the benefits of these things but don't bear any of the costs. And so a lot of people would say, oh, yeah, Brexit sounds great, but it'll never happen. If it doesn't happen, there won't be any regional Australia. They will burn us out. They'll shut us down. We have to take back control of our own destiny or we won't have a destiny at all. And people ask how it could happen. it's in the Australian Constitution. So when they wrote the Australian Constitution, they expected we would make new states as the population grew and people populated the inland. They thought we'd break it all up into new states like they did in the US. But in fact, because of the way things were set up, the people have been stripped out of the bush areas instead of put in. So to make a new state, it's very simple. The actual process is the state parliament votes to release an area of land, and the federal parliament votes to make a new state, and there you are. It doesn't even need a vote. We talk about having a vote because that'll lend it credibility. But we wouldn't vote in all the state. We'd just vote in the areas that wanted to break away. There's a precedent for it. In the 1950s, there was a referendum in northern New South Wales in the New England region to make a new state up there. But the Liberal Party sabotaged that. They didn't want those areas to break. Those areas voted Liberal and National. They didn't want them to break away, so they proposed to add Newcastle into the area that was to be separated. And because Newcastle at the time was a big Labor city, the Labor Party campaigned heavily against the referendum. So when the vote was held, I think the vote was 52-48 against the breakaway. But if you took Newcastle out of the picture, it was more like 85% in favour. So the regional people...
How devastating.
Yeah. And there was another movement in Riverina in the 1930s, which again got sabotaged by city politicians. But it can happen, and it has to happen, because if it doesn't happen, we don't have a future in the regions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when people say, look, it can never happen, the one thing that will assure that it never happens is if no one tries. And so I like people who say, look, it might not happen, but if we don't give it a red hot crack, we'll never really know.
And I'm right to say that REXIT stands for regional exit, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's some questions Carly's got. Fuel excise tax. So the Libertarians have been running on this for a long time, but they've done a couple of stunts on it recently. So it seems to be a big part of the campaign, I suppose, this time round. And it is different to what the other parties are offering. Did you want to fill us in a little bit on Libertarians and fuel excise?
So, as you said, it's abolishing fuel excise has been a big part of our platform for years. So what we're proposing in this election, which is the same policy we've had for years, is to get rid of fuel excise altogether, which is basically cut your petrol prices by 54 cents a litre. You see, if you're going around the polling booths now, you'll see Liberal Party we'll cut your petrol by 22 cents or something. They're proposing a half cut for 1 year or something to make things.
That's 6 months, isn't it?
I don't know, little one-off hit. But we're proposing to abolish it altogether. So not just a 50. Liberal Party good at stealing our policies and watering them down. We've supported nuclear power for years. The Liberal Party have finally picked it up. Anyway, so petrol excise off petrol, but also excise off alcohol. So I should actually show you this my stubby holder here was from. I don't know. You can see. You probably can't see that very well.
Tim Quilty MP.
When I was an MP,
Liberal.
But on the back we had this graphic, which is how much tax do you pay on your alcohol, and the answer is lots.
Wow.
And this.
I like that stubby. I like that stubby holder. That's a good one.
Just think how much extra beer you could buy if you weren't paying the government. The government's taking fishing 3 cans out of every 6-pack out you're buying is one way of looking at it.
Wow.
Going to bring out jerry cans as well?
What about, sorry?
You're going to bring out jerry cans with the fuel graphics on it for the fuel excise as well?
Should have done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stubby holders are a bit cheaper.
Yeah. Actually, I still got a big box of them in the shed from when I was an MP. So
you should rip them back out. People need to see that.
Yeah. What else? I don't know. I don't know if we talked about tax policy. The Libertarian tax policy is 20% flat tax on incomes over 50,000, or if you're a family, combine their income into a $100,000 tax-free threshold as a family group, and then 20% tax on top of that. That'll be real fixing of cost of living problems. There'll be a lot of money back in your pocket, and also reforms to the business. I get super passionate about tax because I'm a tax accountant, but it's probably not that interesting for other people. But reforming the business tax system, so we're only taxing profits when they're taken out of the business rather than when they're made, which will allow businesses to self-finance rather than borrowing money. It would fundamentally change the way the small business economy works in this country. But anyway, and defending human rights, we talked about freedom of speech, freedom of association, freedom of religion. Defending women's rights to their own spaces, opposing invasive trans medical procedures on children, a bunch of stuff. There's a whole platform. If you're interested at all, you should check it out. But we're not here to talk about Libertarian Party policy. We're here to talk about the bush.
Yeah, around Tim Quilty.
And
Well, since you are an accountant and we're talking to Tim Quilty, can you explain to us what capital gain tax is? Because we've spoken about it a few times on this podcast, but I don't think we've actually explained it. And you'd be the guy to explain it to us. All
right. A capital gains tax is a tax on the increase in the value of an asset that you own. So a house, if you not a car, not a personal use asset, but a house, artwork, any investment that you have that increases in value, the government taxes it. What they do is tax is not on the asset itself. You work out how much profit you made on the sale, and you add that onto your income for the year, and then that's taxed at your marginal tax rate, whatever rate. So if you're earning $50,000 a year and you sell a asset and make $100,000 capital gain, then your income becomes $150,000. Mm-hmm. That's simplified. There is so you didn't sell the asset for $100,000. You sold it for $200,000, but you bought it for $100,000. Then the $100,000 difference is taxable. If you've held an asset for 12 months, they divide that in two. So instead of $100,000, you have $100,000 gain. You divide that in two. You say $50,000 gain, which works all right for assets you haven't held for a very long time. But in a high inflationary environment, like we've had low inflation for a long time, but the last few years inflation spiked. So all these assets rising in value, then inflation pushes the price up, and the asset itself doesn't actually, the real tax value of the asset doesn't change. But I'm getting a little complicated here. But anyway, inflation pushes up capital gains, and the government taxes all that inflationary gain. So inflation is good for the government's tax revenue, but it's bad for you.
But how is that your fault if the government's? Well, I'm only just learning all about. I know nothing about taxes, but how is it your fault if inflation goes up?
It's not your fault, but it's your tax to pay.
That's so wrong.
The same thing happens with income tax. As your inflation goes up and your wages go up to match inflation, the tax brackets don't change, and so everyone gets pushed up. This is where all the government's budget repair tax revenue came from. It's not from giant companies or anyone else. It's from everybody's income being pushed up as they got pay rises to pay for to match inflation, or not even match. They were pushed up into higher tax brackets, and more money was taken from them. So inflation is the government,
and then they can't even afford to. Then they can't even afford to fund parks and look after the bush and decor, and that's so bad.
Yeah.
So that's what they call bracket creep. Is that right, Tim?
That's bracket creep. Yeah.
But just if you hear these terms, I thought while we got Tim on,
I've heard them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a lesson in economics.
We talk about inflation as another form of taxation, basically. It just drives more money into the government's pocket. So,
well, no wonder it's not coming down then.
Yeah. All right. Well, there we go. So a little lesson. Now we can all be accountants. We all understand. Thanks, Tim.
I'd get too angry.
I'm really, really bad at maths, so don't get me to do your account. You'd probably end up in prison. Right. Well, I think, Carly, we can move on to the questions you had, which are from the page. They were put forward for someone else, but we figured we'd just recycle them because we're lazy. And recycling is good, and we're very much about the environment.
yeah.
This is the green dream happening right now.
Right now.
So we've got the first one here. Will the Libertarian Party pull Australia out of global agreements such as Paris Climate Accord and the Kunming-Montreal Biodiversity Framework Agreement, the 30 by 30, that are destroying our country?
Yes, is the short answer. Yes, we will. We don't want to get entangled in these foreign agreements, eroding our sovereignty. There's no reason for it. So absolutely no reason to sign up for this stuff, and we pull out of it all. Yep.
Beautiful. Love it. So we have another one here. So will you advocate against renewable energy land acquisitions and fight for farmers against renewable energy projects, since our current sitting member is funded by Climate 200 and therefore can't?
So again, the answer is yes. And just as an aside, my parents have a fight at the moment on their farm with power lines being pushed through from the Snowy 2.0 project. They're pushing the power lines through their property, and it's basically going to be compulsory acquired. They're going to build 80. These pylons are 80 meters tall. They're going to run right past their house, right through the middle of the farm. And it's a massive, not just an eyesore. It's a big problem with fires. We saw during the 2020 fires with all the smoke and the arcing happening from the high voltage power lines, and the bushfire brigades wouldn't cross under the line, so the fires just get away. If it's burning on the other side, they've got to sit back and watch it. But anyway, so no, I'm not a fan of renewable energy per se. I mean, if people want to put up solar panels, go for it, but the government should not be subsidising it. Yeah. I actually like the look of those big wind turbines, but they're not sensible or practical.
They do look cool, but they're destroying the environment.
As a party, we've talked about nuclear. We don't want the government to fund that either. So we think it should be legal, but if we think private business will invest in that, but if they won't, well, then we won't build it. But it should be we say no bans, no subsidies. Let the market sort out the power system. So also that opens up extracting gas. We think where there's minerals being mined, including gas, we should be paying part of the royalties to the landowners. So at the moment, the government just grabs all the royalties. We think it should be split 50-50 between landholders and the government. But yeah, so, and again, as a party, we're not against solar panels. We just don't think it should be subsidised. If people want to do it, if companies want to invest in it, and if farmers want to put panels on their land, well, it's up to the landowner. But the government shouldn't be
just like just like the vax. You're all for it, but don't mandate it.
Yep.
Basically, yeah. No, I like that.
It sounds like libertarian. If it's your land, you can pretty much do what you want with it if you're not harming other people's land. Would that be a pretty simple answer?
It's property rights. I mean, it's your land. You should be able to do it. You want to build a house on it, build a house on it. You want to have a holiday camp there, have a holiday camp. You want to put solar panels on it, solar panels. It's your land. You should have the right to do what you want.
Yeah.
I like it. Okay, so another one. Do you receive any funding that would limit your ability to advocate for people of INDI, like we have seen in the past?
Yeah, I don't receive any funding at all. Everything's funded out of my own pocket here. No funding, nothing. And if I did take funding from someone, it wouldn't limit me. I would continue to advocate for what I stand for. So that's probably why people wouldn't give me money. But anyway, but no. I'm not up for sale. So
Good.
So,
Very good
on
to
that
hear.
one, can I just say that when you watch politicians and they get into Parliament, generally what you see is they start selling out on their principles. Tim Quilty's been in, and I can't think of anything where I could accuse him of selling out on his principles. Occasionally something I might personally disagree with, but stuck with his principles 100%. So that's, that's my opinion on that. Tim's not going to be selling
I like
out.
that.
Yeah. If you
Maybe
understand,
I like stubborn people.
maybe a couple of times I didn't punch the government as hard as I wanted to. So in retrospect, I would have punched him a bit harder a couple of times, but so I might have toned down my attack a couple of times. But no, in general, I stood up there and took the punches and gave them.
Oh, I've heard you were a bulldog. I've heard you
Yeah.
were a bulldog. Yeah.
Yeah, I think David Limbrick had to pull on his chain a few times. So.
We played good MP,
I love
bad
it.
MP.
Yeah.
David got
I
up
love
and be reasonable, and then I get up there and start throwing the punches out. Yeah.
I love it. Love it. Okay, so we've got another one here. What is the Libertarian view on Welcome to Country, and will you advocate for Native Title Act to be rewritten so it's fair for all Australians?
Yes, I don't know if the party has a personal view on Welcome to Country. I certainly don't see the point of it. I don't want to be welcomed anywhere. If private organisations want to do it, then they can do it in their in their ceremonies. But the government shouldn't be pushing it. And the acknowledgement of country and so on, I just roll my eyes every time it happens. Nobody wants to hear it. It's just this virtue signalling being fed to us for no real value. I'm deeply worried about what's happening with land being granted to Aboriginal groups all over regional Victoria. As one more of the things they're doing to push the people out. And again, it doesn't hurt the people in Melbourne. They can virtue signal saying we gave away the Salt Lake and destroyed their rally.
The Mallee rally.
Just to make people feel good in the city. It actually destroys the economy in the regional areas, and it's not like the Indigenous people don't even get the land. The government says, here it is, but not really, because we're going to keep it and control it, but you own it. Yeah, you own it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, I don't support separate things for Indigenous people. I think everything we've done with Indigenous policy for the last 50 years has been a big mistake. We built this separatist movement, which we didn't have and we didn't need, and it benefits no one. Now we have these radical Aboriginal activists saying we're going to push all the white people into the sea. I think they're Palestinians or something, and it'll end just as well for them as it will for the Palestinians if they keep it up.
I was actually sickened the other day. I saw one of the influencers of one of the Indigenous influencers actually when the Welcome to Country was done and those people booed. He actually put up this a hashtag abolish Anzacs. That actually really sickened me.
Yep.
Yeah, there's extremists going on in every movement that's in Australia right now.
Every time there's a concession made, they move the goalposts to the next thing. So if we have to sign a treaty or something with Indigenous people, let's do it. But let's bring in the negotiators we had to do the treaty with East Timor, where we screwed them out of the oil and gas. Let's take it seriously. Let's stop, not play along. If we have an enemy population living in the country, let's treat them as such. Let's make a final settlement and then draw a line under it and get on with it. Anyway, I don't.
And not behind closed doors.
No, in public. Very public.
Yes. Our government is, yes. Yes, okay. So, moving on. This will be an interesting one for a Libertarian, but I am very interested. Okay, so rapid fire. How many genders are there?
2, as far as I'm concerned. Again, if men want to go around in dresses, good on them. If adults want to change their gender, if they want to get operated on and live try and live the life of the person of the opposite sex, go for it. If you're an adult, you can make your own choices. This should never apply to children, because children cannot consent. They have to be adults before they can do it. If adults want to do it, well, it's up to them. I can't. It's all very odd behaviour to me, but I don't have to judge other people. Other people can live their life the way they want to, but there are only.
It doesn't have to be shoved in our faces.
Well, if someone gets off on shoving it in people's faces, they can do that as long as they're not invading spaces for the women's spaces. And no one gets upset about it if women want to go into men's toilets. That's fine. But we have the women's spaces are a protected category for a reason, and we have to keep them. We have to keep them protected. Yeah.
Well, thank you for having that view. Okay, so last one. I won't bring this up because I've got a typo on there. But so how will the Libertarians provide mental health support for farmers affected by Labor's disastrous net zero pipe dream?
All right. So, in principle, as Libertarians, we're not about the government spending. We're about the government saving. We're about cutting government spending. So, I'm not the person to talk to about providing mental health. We have mental health processes that will continue. It's be a long, long time before the government's shut down and gone altogether, right? So as long as the government's taking taxes and spending them on a health system, they have to provide services in regional Victoria as well as or regional Australia, not just the cities. So I'm all about advocating for the government spending to be targeted where it's needed, but also spent well, because what government does, they take $10 from you, pocket 3 of them, and give 7 back, or 5 in Melbourne and 2 back to you in the bush, and they waste 20, 30, 40% of the money themselves on administration. You're better off leaving the money with the people who own it, who will spend it properly, in principle. But I'm not sure that's really answering the question. We will continue to ensure that money is better spent and more money in the regions, but we're not really the spend more money people. We don't believe in the magic money tree. We think money, in principle, should be left with the people who earn it, not taken by bureaucrats.
So I'm going to help you out with this one, because you did actually answer it earlier. You would actually just pull net zero.
Oh, yep, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's a blanket, fixes the whole farmer mental health situation, because they've got two birds, one stone.
It's pull net zero.
One fix. We also got the massive problems with the Murray River and all the environmental water flows, which are destroying irrigation farmers and regional communities. There's about 50 things the government's doing to screw regional Australia. So net zero is just one little piece of that. There's a lot more stuff to fix, but
yes, it's a mess, isn't it? Well, that's all my questions.
Very good. Well, look, we're just about not that far off the hour mark, and I know you're busy, Tim. Was there anything particularly you wanted to ask people, tell people about, or ask people maybe to help out with your campaign or something? And then we'll wrap up.
Yes. So obviously, the election is now a couple of days away. We all the minor parties need volunteers. Politics is run by the people who turn up, and what the major parties have, although they haven't got that many members now, both our major parties used to have hundreds of thousands of members in this country. Now they have tens of thousands of members. The vast majority of the Australian population is turned off completely. But if you don't get involved in politics, then the people who are involved will be the ones who decide what gets done. The Greens are very passionate about their politics, and they push their ideas, and they get their supporters to turn out to help them. And if you want to stop that, you have to turn out as well. So all the minor parties need volunteers on polling booths, handing out how to votes on Saturday. And then this is not the last election. If you've left it too late to get involved this time, you've got 16 months to the state election. It's time you can get involved in a party and start to see some of these ideas push through, because it won't change unless we change it.
Yeah.
It's if the old trite saying, if not you, then who? If not now, then when? And the answer is yes. If you don't step up to do it, it's not going to happen. So you can't leave it for somebody else. Everyone's been leaving it for somebody else, and look where we've got to. So it's the time to step up.
Mm-hmm. I 100% agree. Carly, you got to clip that and get that out there. First clip of this episode.
Yeah.
All right. So is that it from you?
I think so. I've got to go feed my son. He's probably banging on the door now. Hey, where's my dinner?
Yeah, you're a busy family
Thank
man.
you for joining us.
Oh, thanks a lot for having me on.
No, we really appreciate it. I really wanted to people to get to know you, and this has been great. So thank you.
I want more people to get to know Tim. The more people that know Tim, the more people love him.
No.
All right. A little bit of a man crush, guys, but I'm very straight, so don't worry.
Okay, that came out of nowhere.
Yeah. No, I've got a bit of a look. When it came to looking at parties, it was a lot of what Tim had been doing and what he'd been advocating on that I went, well, the Libertarian Party is a party for me. I wasn't even sure if I was necessarily in agreement with the philosophy, but watching Tim fight, and David Limbrick as well, but I was mainly focused on Tim because he's about a lot of the things I'm passionate about. So
I'm going to have to get on YouTube, and I'm going to have to find these speeches, because I haven't seen them, but I have heard of them. So now I'm very, very interested. So
I'm going to chuck some down in the comments, guys. And Tim likes to say he's brief. I did watch that 10-minute one not all that long ago, and that wasn't brief, and it was very forward. So
I want to see the bulldog in action.
Yeah. Go on, Tim.
All right.
Yep. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you. Guys, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Share.
I already did it.
Sorry? You stopped.
Yeah.
You always got to let me.
Oh, no, I didn't. No, I didn't. Keep going.
Like, comment, subscribe, and share. Get out there this election. It doesn't matter whether you're like the Libertarians or One Nation or Gerard Rennick's party. Whatever it is, get involved. Get in the fight, because the Greens will beat us again if you don't. So get out there, guys. Thank you.
Thanks.